Kirk e sua tripulação já está em cartaz com o subtítulo Terra Destruída. Os produtores estão prometendo que essa é a última versão para o cinema dos velhos aventureiros da galáxia, o que é até aconselhável, porque Kirk, McCoy, Spock e companhia já não estão mais com o mesmo sex appeal, se é que eles já tiveram algum. Mas, em compensação, o charme está intacto, a trama é emocionante e os efeitos especiais são espetaculares. Precisa mais?
2 months ago, a Federation starship monitored an explosion on the Klingon moon, Praxis. They will have depleted their supply of oxygen in approximately 50 Earth years.
Spock is playing the elder statesman. Spock is playing the person who has kind of been through the battles and has an overview.
There's an old Vulcan proverb. Only Nixon can go to China.
They're animals.
The Klingons are the Cold War of today, and so the Federation was the Western world, and the Klingons were the Eastern world.
The undiscovered country, the future.
Have you not a shred of decency? We come in peace, and you blatantly defy that peace.
Our evil empire in Star Trek was the Klingons. And I thought, wouldn't it be interesting if we could now do a story about the Klingons having a difficulty which would lead them to need to come to us and say, let's talk about peace. And the road to peace, as we know, is not easy.
Captain, they're coming about.
We've always seen our future as being vast, as varied, and full of change.
Signal our surrender.
The undiscovered country is not a reference to death, but a reference to the future, which also, for some people, is scary.
We would consider an attempt to rescue them an act of war.
This is Captain Sulu, USS Excelsior.
We stand ready to assist you.
We don't know what works best. We think it's the combination of a good story, the science fiction effects, if you will, the relationship of the characters, and the speed with which the story is told.
Fire!
Na semana que vem a gente vai fazer uma homenagem mais que merecida à Jornada nas Estrelas. Por hoje o Cine MTV fica por aqui, mas no próximo programa você vai ver um especial de meia hora dedicado exclusivamente à Jornada nas Estrelas. Tem entrevistas com os 6 atores principais, cenas do novo filme e até os melhores momentos da antiga série de TV que completou 25 anos. Tudo isso apresentado pela conselheira Deanna Troi, personagem de Jornada nas Estrelas, a nova geração. Você não pode perder, mesmo que você não seja um Trek mania, no Cine MTV. E hoje é um Cine MTV especial. Para aproveitar o filme Jornada nas Estrelas 6, A Terra Desconhecida, no programa de hoje, Deanna Troi, que é da 2ª geração da série de TV, vai te levar a bordo da Starship Enterprise para conversar com os membros da tripulação que está se aposentando depois de 25 anos de viagens estelares. Quer dizer, teoricamente, eles estão se aposentando. Você vai ver cenas memoráveis como o Sr. Spock tendo ataques de humano e perdendo o controle. Bom, quase. Já o galã Capitão Kirk dá uma sequência de beijos que faz a gente duvidar quando ele diz que a mulher da sua vida é a Enterprise. Aliás, Kirk, mesmo meio caído, não perde a pose e continua beijoqueiro no longa-metragem que está agora em cartaz. Esse é supostamente o último com o elenco veterano, porque a jornada não deve acabar tão cedo. Basta lembrar que nem a morte do Sr. Spock pôs fim à série. Spock ressuscitou para pacificar o universo. Bom, agora chega de falar. Boa viagem.
Counselor's personal log, started 45341.3. Since our recent contact with Ambassador Spock, I have sensed on board a renewed curiosity with the crew of the original Starship Enterprise. I must admit that I too am curious. Computer, access files of Constitution-class Starship Enterprise 1701A. List file headings of command crew.
This is the captain of the Enterprise speaking.
I'm trying to perform a role and fill every crevice of it with as much life as possible. That life is mine.
Fire! Well, either choke me or cut my throat. Make up your mind.
I'll look at them and thank God were we ever that young.
Jim, be careful.
We will.
You'd make a splendid computer, Mr. Spock.
That is very kind of you, Captain. I think if you just keep playing the same character without any arc or without any growth or change or definition, I think it gets boring.
You're my superior officer. You are also my friend. I have been and always shall be yours.
I have elected to remain on board during our routine maintenance layover to examine the logs of that ship and of its crew, and to understand the importance of their final mission.
Battle stations.
Incoming.
Signal our surrender.
Captain?
We surrender.
The future. The undiscovered country. These are the logs of the Starship Enterprise and of its crew, who would change the future of a galaxy by boldly going where no one had gone before. Counselor's log. I am beginning my study on the crew of the Enterprise A, with their captain, a man very different to Jean-Luc Picard. Computer, access the file on Federation Starship Captain James T. Kirk.
Any suggestions, Admiral?
Prayer, Mr. Savick. The Klingons don't take prisoners. Lights. I've always tried to have a nobility of spirit, if you will, with Kirk.
Kirk to Enterprise.
Scotty, where's that power?
Energize.
Fire main bases.
I see a stranger. I don't recognize that person at all. I see a young man, and I wish I could do it again. I mean the performance, because doing series television is so quick, you don't have time to really think about plan what you're doing. You just do it instinctively. Whenever there was the horror of the week, you know, the animal, the alien of the week, I realized that rather than fear or trepidation, it was something of interest.
No. No, I won't kill you.
Became something to go towards rather than to retreat from.
Tell me about the women in your world, Captain.
Worlds may change, galaxies disintegrate, but a woman always remains a woman.
Settling down with a woman connotates home and hearth. I don't think he has the hearth for it.
See you around the galaxy.
Other people have families.
Other people do, it's not us. Well, he loves his ship a lot, you know.
I've already got a female to worry about. Her name's the Enterprise.
I think my reactions are slower 25 years later. I'm trying to find the humor in the character as much, but perhaps I'm being simpler.
Counselor's log. Unlike Captain Picard, James Kirk appeared to rely on only 2 men for command advice. Ambassador Spock served most of his Starfleet career as first officer aboard Enterprise A. Note for future research. Despite being half human, Spock has lived his life as a Vulcan.
Have I ever mentioned you play a very irritating game of chess, Mr. Spock?
Irritating. Ah, yes. One of your Earth emotions. I look at some of that stuff today, some of the stuff we did in the 60s, and that Spock was very, very different.
I have a human half, you see, as well as an alien half, submerged, constantly at war with each other. I survive it because my intelligence wins out over both, makes them live together.
He's a character who claims to know exactly who he is and who claims to be exactly where he wants to be, but he's really struggling.
I am in control of my emotions. Control of my emotions.
I felt inside this character who kept saying, I am not emotional. I don't know what emotions are. I don't experience emotions. Was a very emotional turmoil going on.
Fascinating.
He chose a Vulcan philosophy because there was a kind of a serenity in it for him, I think, and a way of setting himself aside.
Oh, why you're not afraid to die, Spock? You're more afraid of living. Each day you stay alive is just one more day you might slip and let your human half peek out.
Spock is the supposedly alien character, but in a way, he's the most human character in the group because he has all these human problems.
Really, Dr. McCoy, you must learn to govern your passions. They will be your undoing. Logic suggests.
Logic? My God, the man's talking about logic. We're talking about universal Armageddon.
You green-blooded and...
Note for future reference. Kirk referred to Leonard McCoy, the ship's doctor, as Bones.
Bones? He's dead, Jim.
I'm a doctor, not a bricklayer.
It's established that he originally came from Georgia.
Hiya, Jimmy boy. Hey, I've taken care of everything. Now, all y'all got to do is just relax. Doctor's orders.
A guy, a homespun doctor, a country doctor, that had come aboard for one reason or another, some disappointment in his life, brought him aboard into the service. He was not written as your military man.
Well, for a man who swore he'd never return to Starfleet.
Just a moment, Captain, sir. I'll explain what happened. Your revered Admiral Nagura invoked a little-known, seldom-used reserve activation clause. In simpler language, Captain, they drafted me.
I think he was bringing him in as the conscience of our king, or the catalyst, so to speak, between these two guys.
Spock, you haven't changed a bit. You're just as warm and sociable as ever.
No, have you, Doctor? As your continued predilection for irrelevancy demonstrates.
Gentlemen, Spock to him represented a computerized generation that was taken. Everything was so far out. He hated to see this kind of thing come about where people don't really care anymore, this cold way.
Perhaps we could cover a little philosophical ground.
I did not have time on Vulcan to review the philosophical disciplines.
Come on, Spock, it's me, McCoy. You really have gone where no man's gone before.
The fans used to refer to us in the series as a trinity.
Spock, Captain. Bones, Mr. Spock. Jim. Who, me, Doctor? Captain.
Spock. In the way that they bounce off of each other, the way they interact with each other, we see the whole story.
You guys like Italian?
No.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
No.
Yes. I love Italian. And so do you.
Yes.
There's a very conscious attempt, obviously, to make these characters present one point of view, another point of view, and Kirk in the center, kind of staggered between them.
Help me. Somebody make the decision. Are you relinquishing your command, Captain?
No. No, I'm not.
Well, then we can't help you, Jim. The decision is yours.
If you were to break up Hamlet's soliloquy, the most famous soliloquy probably in Shakespeare, it would be Spock saying to be, McCoy saying or not to be, and Kirk saying that is the question.
What is a man but that lofty spirit, that sense of enterprise?
Counselor's log. 3 distinctive personalities that seem, in a way, to form a whole. Personal log. To have been a counselor on that ship would have been a very interesting experience. Personal log. Stardate 45342.1. Still trying to gain insight into our crew's relationships by looking back on the crew of Captain James T. Kirk. Computer, access files on Enterprise A command crew.
Mr. Scott, your old space talk. You're well.
I had a wee bout, sir, but Dr. McCoy pulled me through.
Wee bout of what?
Surely that.
Whatever James doing is, that's what Scotty is. Scotty's 99% James doing, but, you know, and 1% accent.
Mr. Scott, have you always multiplied your repair estimates by a factor of 4?
Certainly, sir. How else can I keep my reputation as a miracle worker?
Well, gracious, I was 44 years old when I started, you know. It's just kind of fun to see myself so young.
Bridge to engineering. Pulling away from the sun weakened them, sir.
They may blow apart if I reverse.
Aft thrusters.
Thank you, Lieutenant. 1/4 impulse power. Aye, sir.
He's in his engine room, but he's not always in his engine room. He has so many other things to do, and his engines are working perfectly, of course. As a matter of fact, I think just about everybody was very happy with what they're doing, particularly George. He's now captain of his own ship.
This is Captain Sulu, USS Excelsior. We stand ready to assist you.
At long last, high tide, and believe me, it feels great.
I have an energy wave at 240 degrees Mark 6 port, sir. Visual.
To be that motive power, the guy that makes that scene happen, the guy that gives the command, everything around him, you know, happens as a result of what the captain does. And I'm him.
Stand. No father.
The steadiness, the reliability, and absolute competence of Sulu. But he also brought a little dash, a little swashbuckle, a little panache.
Don't call me tiny.
We saw an intense and negative aspect of Sulu in Mirror, Mirror, and that's that rapacious scene with Uhura.
Still no interest, Uhura? Hmm? I could change your mind.
You are away from your post, mister.
Unfortunately, the dumb twit rejected him.
Starship Enterprise.
Well, she said a hell of a lot more than hailing frequencies open.
Hailing frequencies open.
And she has matured nicely.
Galloping around the cosmos is a game for the young, Doctor.
Now, what is that supposed to mean?
I see her moving on, possibly as head of all communications. And then she can tell the whole universe where to go.
Yes, Captain. Hey! Hey! Hey!
We decided to bring onto the show a Russian navigator. After all, the cosmonauts were the first people to go into space, and they were also looking for somebody who they felt would appeal to the bubblegum set. I really, truly didn't believe that Star Trek a film was ever going to really happen.
In the first Star Trek motion picture, we did not get to play a lot of personal drama. It was a movie that was about it, that thing out there. What does it want? Where is it going? What is it going to do? And what's going to happen to it? In Star Trek II, we were back to doing stories that engaged us as characters.
Get back your command before you really do grow old.
When it was suggested to me that Spock would die, I thought, boy, maybe it's time to end this.
Bones?
Better. Hurry.
Spock is still alive. How could Spock have died?
Spock! Leonard wanted to leave. And then he changed his mind. And we bring him back.
Don't grieve, Admiral. It is logical. The needs of the many outweigh
the needs of the few.
Or the one.
I thought, well, let's go for it. Let's do it. It was very moving. It was really intended to be the end of Spock. The day we shot the scene, I remember being extremely sensitive about what we were doing and kind of philosophical, thinking, gee, end of a long story here with this character.
Live long and prosper.
That picture had a feel about it. And in a scene in the movie before he dies, he does this thing with me and says,
"Remember."
And I thought, uh-oh, you know, Leonard's going to come to life.
Repeat and augment.
Remember.
And then he said, well, maybe I'm not out of here. And we brought him back.
I think we were successful in Star Trek III because it was a story about the rest of the crew being willing to put their lives, their careers, their reputations on the line to help a friend. It had to do with loyalty.
My God, Bones. What have I done? What you had to do. What you always do. Turn death into a fighting chance to live.
Counselor's log. Note the word loyalty. A ship's crew cannot survive without it. And without it, this crew would never have survived to face its final and most important mission.
To offer Klingons a safe haven within Federation space is suicide.
They're animals, Jim. They are dying.
Counselor's log, stardate 45343.2. The crew of our ship is very different to the crew of the original Starship Enterprise. For example, Lieutenant Worf would not have been able to stand on that bridge. In their time, the Federation and the Klingon Empire were bitter enemies.
The Klingons were the Cold War of today.
You of the Federation, you are much like us.
We're nothing like you.
The arch enemy of the West, what President Reagan, when he was president, referred to as the evil empire, was beginning to fall apart. And our evil empire in Star Trek was the Klingons.
Klingon bastards, you've killed my son.
I thought, wouldn't it be interesting if we could now do a story about the Klingons having a difficulty which would lead them to need to come to us and say, let's talk about peace.
2 months ago, a Federation starship monitored an explosion on the Klingon moon, Praxis. They will have depleted their supply of oxygen in approximately 50 Earth years.
You, Captain Kirk, are to be our first olive branch.
Me? You must remember they're facing retirement.
We volunteered.
There's an old Vulcan proverb. Only Nixon could go to China.
Spock is playing the elder statesman. Spock is playing the person who has kind of been through the battles as a result of ideas that he proposes. Kirk and McCoy and the Enterprise are put into a life-threatening situation.
I offer him to the record.
Except from the captain's personal log.
I've never trusted us. I never will.
We think it's the combination of a good story, the science fiction effects, if you will, the relationship of the characters, the humor, and the action speed with which the story is told.
Captain, they're coming about.
I feel a great sense of peace about it. I feel a great sense of accomplishment, a great sense of satisfaction. I think this is a good movie. A movie that has a sense of closure about it, a sense of goodbye about it.
If you could do everything over again, would you do this again? And I thought about it. I stood there and thought about it, you know, for a while. And I said, yes, I would.
Computer, close file on Enterprise A. Counselor's log, final entry. The crews of both ships had much in common, and many differences. Most notably...
Counselor Troy, Captain Picard requires you on base immediately.
Acknowledged. Now, what was I saying? Oh, yes. I was comparing the crews. Well, it's like Will Riker once said. It's like comparing apples and oranges.
All I ask is a tall ship and a star to steer by.
Bom, cinema está de volta à Terra depois desse passeio espacial para nenhum Trek maníaco reclamar. Jornada nas Estrelas 6, A Terra Desconhecida, ainda está em cartaz se você quiser continuar a sua aventura. E a grande estreia da semana é Bugsy, o campeão de indicações ao Oscar, concorrendo em 10 categorias. Nas próximas semanas você vai ver tudo sobre Bugsy, inclusive uma entrevista com o diretor Barry Levinson. E no programa que vem ainda tem mais.